Okay. So good day, everyone. Now we will be talking to Carrie Preston and Victoria Manoylo about the project What Does Not Burn. Mūsų lietuvių klausytojams aš rekomenduočiau įsijungti CC, kad matytumėte vertimą į lietuvių kalbą. I thought that people can put the CC caption so that they would see the translation in Lithuania. So I think we can start. Now, Victoria, you are in Great Britain and you are preparing the show. You are already there. So maybe the whole history of the garden, What Does Not Burn, started with you. So could you please say a few words about the idea, how you came up with that, and why this project was just started?
Hello, everyone. I'm Victoria Manoylo from Ukraine, from Kiev, and I live near Kiev, near Bucha, and I'm landscape designer. And thank you now for inviting and for broadcasting our history, our truly interesting and imaginary and beautiful history. So when the war has started, we have been in Italy on the exhibition My Plant with my husband, and we just could not return home. So we understood that Bucha and our house is under occupation, and to go there is like making to stop all whole life for nothing. For our family, our children are safe. They are living. One son is living in Prague, and other son was fleeing from Kharkiv, and so they are all safe now and for that time. And we started to find us in the situation, because maybe for a month we could not stand with it. We just spend all the time browsing news, and all the time, all days comes like behind us. And after maybe a month, we moved to Germany, and one day decided to visit Carrie. It was like a beam from the sky.
Very, very spur of the moment.
I phoned her and said, Carrie, are you there in Arnhem? We are just 80 kilometers from you. Can we come over? She said, yes, of course, come here. Send me an email, send me a mail address, and we came. So the idea of making an exhibition garden was emerged from Carrie from that time, and we started to produce an idea. But maybe a month more, or maybe even more, I wasn't. I couldn't do that. I wasn't able to produce something, to draw, to imagine, to look at beauty. I went in Prague, I went to the Museum of Mucha, and I just make photos of everything, because I understood. I just don't see anything. I make photo for me, for remember, but to look at this later.
Mm-hmm.
That's why only maybe early May, we were already like browsing the idea and making brainstorming and that.
All right.
I think this is when we met at that time, you were at the tail end of that period where you just couldn't even see beauty. And I think you were, finding a way to get out of that right then.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's really the feelings, I guess, were so strong at the moment that you cannot think of anything else, because the war itself is such a strong emotionally, such a strong feeling that came up, that you came up to? I cannot speak in English anymore. Yeah. So, Carrie, you have participated in several show gardens before, so you had the experience. So this was your idea to bring the experience and the feelings of Victoria to the to materialize it into the show
what
garden.
Happened, so I know at that time Victoria was trying to find work when we first had met up with each other, and she had sent off for jobs in England. She was trying in Germany, and nothing was really materializing because everything's so uncertain, and when you don't know how long you're going to be somewhere, no one wants to hire you. And somewhere in our conversation, I said, well, maybe you should do something like a show garden, because that's a temporary project that gives this time some meaning. But yeah, you're not committing for a longer period. That would be something good for that. And so we just sort of thrown that idea up in the air. And coincidentally, I am on the mailing list from the RHS. And I had heard just very randomly that a spot opened up at Hampton Court. Because at that moment, when I was saying that to her, I meant like she should apply for the next year.
Yeah, okay.
And I think I messaged you and I said, there's this spot. Are you interested in doing that? And initially, I was just pushing Victoria to do this. Because I was supposed to be in Spain and France looking at houses right now. So when I had seen it originally, I was like, no, I'm not doing this. But yeah, I don't know how it happened, but we were going to brainstorm together. And then I think like after that conversation, you're like, well, Carrie, do this with me, which I think in hindsight was really smart, because this was far too much work for any one person, for any two people. Like we needed a team to get this done. Yeah. So it just sort of, it felt a little bit serendipitous, just sort of like we had this conversation. I saw this opening, I wrote, and it just sort of kind of snowballed very quickly into an actual thing.
Okay, so that was May.
I think we had talked about it in late April. And then in May, I saw this opening.
Mm-hmm. So now there went not more than 2 months passed by. So
and like I said, before we started recording, this is a very short time to do a show garden. And I think it's amazing that we achieved it. I do not recommend 2 months. Like if you ask me, would you do this again 2 months? I think I'd say no. I think a year is better. 6 months, maybe 2 months.
Yeah. No. Victoria, have you ever participated in a show garden?
No. Participated, and Carrie absolutely right. She like threw us a safe circle, and she pulls us out of that psychological problem, of that psychological I don't know, dirt that we are sunken with my husband. And we start to plan something. We understood that we need maybe go there, go to Carrie, go to nurseries, go there, and we can plan. Because all the last times we cannot plan anymore, not more for one day. So staying in Germany, we're just planning tomorrow, we go to some authority, we go to some shop and all that. And having these plans for like after show, like middle of July, it's like having a life again.
Yeah, I fully understand that. This is like that we have a little bit long-term plans to make. Yeah. Actually, I felt something similar when I approached to Marina Kriachko. Thank you, Victoria, for the contact. I invited her to the Garden Style Conference this year, and she is coming. And when I was talking to her, I understood that she's sitting there also via virtual our meeting, and she sits there in Kharkov, and I understand that she hears shooting just
bombing
nearby, and it's like and we both understand that. But at the same time, I understand that it's very important for her to know that she will be doing something in August in Lithuania, where she is important, where she can bring the message to the other people. And also we want to have this message about modern Ukrainian art and design, etc. So
yeah, that's correct, absolutely.
They actually have done studies on that the difference between whether you feel traumatized or not has sometimes less to do with what happens than whether or not you felt like you had agency and the ability to do something. And that sense of powerlessness is a lot of what is traumatizing.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the garden idea, because it's very related to what we are talking now. Could you, Victoria, say a few words about the idea, what the garden brings to us?
We received a video from our client who just entered his new house in February, and we have building the garden for 2 years for him. And he sent a video where is no house at all. It's just burnt. It's just ashes. No pieces of something. It just burnt at all. Only a stove in war the second, and that's horrible. And no garden besides around the house. And we discussed the idea, and Carrie said that the embroidery itself would be very interesting to people who don't know the Ukrainian culture and all that this would be wow. And we combine this idea with Phoenix, who is arising. Actually, I spoken to my client and I asked him, should I send someone to make service in your rest of your garden? He said, no, not this year. Next year I will build it again. So he wants to build it again. He will do it. He can do it. We only need a piece in our land, and that's all.
I want to talk a little bit, because indeed we were discussing different ways that we could approach expressing the war. And one of the things that I notice and I believe in is that you have to think about your audience when you're bringing a message, and also the context. And so if you're at Hampton Court, which is this lovely, romantic, beautiful place, people are not going there for a heavy, dark, in-depth political discussion. That's not the context for that type of message. And so you want, if you're bringing it there, to bring it in a way that people are open to it. And so we were first working with this idea of the burnt cottage, and we were just going to have a house that was burnt with a garden. We were talking every way, but we wanted, even though we were very much showing the war and the damage, we wanted the garden to be more poetic and to have a feeling of hope and resilience in it, because we thought people might be more open to the message if it's brought that way. And so, and this is how the idea of the embroidery came, because we wanted to choose something that was very uniquely Ukrainian and expressed that sort of hope and resilience and strength. And so finding that balance.
And I trusted Carrie on this because she was very experienced.
I thought you were going to say convincing and overpowering.
in how people understand the everything around the show garden, how they can walk through and say, oh no, I will not return there. And we need people to go back and make one more circle around, and decided to make it beautiful, but with touch of this grief, and show this trident, trizub, and try to combine beauty and this part of grief, but with the hope to reborn.
And I think it's also really important when you're doing, I think, any type of art piece, and I would say that this garden in a way is more like an art installation than necessarily a garden. You don't want to fill in between the lines too much. You want to suggest things so that people can fill it in on their own. And so this garden allows that. Like, we're not hammering it in. We're showing the damage without layering on.
Yes.
And another idea that, for example, on Chelsea Flower Show, the garden should be usable. So it should be some places to some fences or something like that. But on the Hampton Court, we are in global impact.
Yeah, because it's global impact,
Yeah, we are on a global impact. So this problem, the war in Ukraine, is really global impact.
Yes.
It impact all the Europe and all the world. So that's why it's such a brilliant match for us. Yeah.
Well, and one of the difficulties too, because I think the difference, if you're going to compare Chelsea and Hampton Court, so Chelsea is much more compact, and so you're much more up close, whereas Hampton Court is a much more open place. And so we were thinking a lot about, like, how are you going to view this garden from a distance? And like, if we do the embroidery, how is that going to be read if you're like hundreds of meters away? And so it's a different scale that you're working in because of that space.
How big is the plot that you're working on?
10 by 15. And we just kind of made that up, to be honest, because we were having trouble getting in contact with people. And I knew there was a spot, and because I know show gardens, I know that's like a kind of average space. And at that point, my main thing was I wanted Victoria and Oleski to have something to work on. So I just thought, you know what? I think we have a pretty good chance of this, but like, I was like, maybe 50, maybe 70%. And I thought, let's just run with it. And we didn't have time to wait for answers. So I was saying, let's just make something impressive.
Yeah.
We can convince them. So we just made up the plot because we didn't know what was available and no one was answering. I was like, okay, we're just going to do it on this, and we're going to make a design that can be adapted if it's a different size plot. So that also sort of led our design choices, because we knew we wanted this house, we knew we wanted a road, but like, if the road was a little shorter, or it could all still work.
Yeah. So let me show the visualizations of that. Do you see it? So can you comment a little bit about the idea, seeing that?
So the house is a burned skeleton of the Ukrainian cottage. It shows that it was a house, it was a life inside, and it is burned to ashes.
Okay. So there is only a burned out structure of it.
Yeah, and the only structure is what we see. Everything burned. The windows and the furniture and the roof. And we see only these embroidered pieces of material which are hanged from the beams, rafters, and this rushnik. We're supposed to do it different patterns first, and we understood that different patterns will mix from the far away, and it wouldn't work. And then we take the most strong pattern is a tree of life, made from it like fragments, very much enlarged fragments of the tree of life. And this is the main patterns of this material, which will be hanged on the house. Inside the house, there stand trident, Ukrainian trezub, the symbol of Ukraine. And this sculpture looks like a bird.
Like a falcon, you said, right?
Like a phoenix from the ashes rising. Yes.
Yeah.
And not too heavy-handed, not too literal.
Yeah, as it is, the trident has a shape of falcon, and like it goes for the something on the ground. We actually think that this will be thing like to think more. People who will see this will not thinking about a bird immediately, not thinking about the trident immediately. So it will be something to think, and it will be like a host. So something like
we've asked Claude Posquer, who is a French garden designer but also a sculptor, to make it, and he does a lot of things with chicken wire to sort of make a sort of semi-transparent sculptures, and so he's going to do it in just a galvanized material, so it's going to be somewhat transparent and kind of ghostly. So it could look like a flame, it could look like a phoenix, could look like a bit like a ghost. Yeah, so I think the materialization will be really beautiful with that.
Sounds amazing. And here I see the colorful cloths around this burnt house, right?
Yeah.
As Victoria was explaining, it's still going to be colorful, but we're doing a lot of, we really struggled with the Rishniks, we'll be very honest, because we like the idea, but what I was talking about, the scale and how do you make it legible from a distance, because to get them all embroidered, in the beginning, we didn't think that was going to be possible, thought we'd have to print it. And so how do you make it beautiful if it's printed? And not have it just become this sort of muddy mess that you can't read from a distance. And so at a certain point, I don't know if you have the image of it, of what we wind up doing for the Rushniks, but we wound up zooming in quite far so that the embroidery stitches are going to be 4 centimeters large. And so you're only seeing like snippets of it. And when we were doing that, we wound up simplifying which patterns we were using, and stuck to a red, white and black tree of life, because that's the most typically Ukrainian colors and pattern. And so it's not going to be this mix that we had here. We're going to
okay. This is what I wanted to ask, because before our this talk, I asked people from Facebook, etc., to ask some questions for you if they have some. So one of the questions were Dalia was asking about the Ukraine. How is this garden representing Ukraine, having in mind that Ukraine is huge, there are many different regions? So then I thought that maybe different patterns of the cloths is something like that.
That was the idea, but it was then you have the logistics of how are you going to actually realize it.
First we thought that it would be different regions and embroideries represents the different regions, but then we thought also about the planting, how to represent different regions. So it is like it's not possible. We just need to do something that
is possible.
That is Ukraine, and Ukraine is a grain, and Ukraine is a bread and a food, and that's all. And Ukrainian house in like an old abandoned orchard, where the landscape of orchard become landscape of wheat and wheat like bread. So like all the time making something and growing something. And we thought about how to do this way, the paving. And I sent Carrie a video where I go for a walk with my dog. And she said that we need this road, just this road. And I sent her this video because we talked about this group of trees, how I see this. And so this just around my house. This landscape is just around my house.
It's Victoria's Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's my Ukraine. Yeah.
And I think this is the most important thing, because this is how you reflect that. And this is still going through your experience and your Ukrainian experience. So I think this is all legit, has to say.
Of course, I would like to complicate everything and go more patterns and give. But Carrie stops me everywhere. Stop this! No, that's no.
Yeah, but I think sometimes it's important to make the things done instead of going around, etc. And when you have like a 1 month or so it's amazing that you have done that, and this garden will be
absolutely
standing there with plants. Maybe you don't know yet some of them, so how you will get them, but still something will happen. And I'm amazed that you have done that, actually. Amazing.
So are we.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think the most powerful thing that we can do with this is to just be there, that to just have a Ukrainian garden at this moment at the show is already such a statement.
Mm-hmm.
And so what specifically we did was actually almost less important than that we did it. Like, you know what I mean? Because
for me, actually, one of the interesting things is, and I also see it from the questions that I have received to ask you, is about the this balance between the traditions and the modern garden, and actually the team of you both, and of course of all the people all together who are involved in all this project. It's really interesting how you join everything in one garden, because I think, Victoria, you will agree with me. 20 years ago, if anybody would go with the local identity theme to the international some fair or so, we would bring like a traditional stuff, and there wouldn't be any modern touch, But today we have had some lot of steps, we went further. And also I think that, Carrie, your participation in this project also gives some nice touch, like from the modern perspective, because in this project, the way that you present Ukraine, it's really unique.
Well, I think what I saw my role as in this is kind of as a conduit in a way, because I know the medium of show gardens. And I also know a bit how the West will read it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so with these rushniks, for example, as well, we had a lot of discussion about how much should we keep it exactly the tradition, and how much do we reinterpret it a little bit so that it is more interesting to a Western audience, because we're not making the garden for Ukrainians in Ukraine. Like, yes, it's to represent them, but we're making it for the audience at Hampton Court and in England. And so they need to understand it. And in a way, that's part of why the cottage works perfectly as well, because by doing the cottage in this way, in this idyllic little grain field, I think a lot of British people are going to see that and be like, oh, Ukraine's kind of like Britain. We have cottages like that. We have grain fields like that. No, I'm very serious.
Yeah, yeah.
It brings it closer, because I think for a lot of Westerners, Ukraine is still a fairly abstract idea.
Yes, somewhere there.
It's east. Yeah, and it gets kind of grouped together, and to choose elements that they can relate to brings it closer, and that increases empathy and help.
Mm-hmm.
And as for me, I just, at the moment of our discussion of the design, I rely on Carrie's vision and her vision as an American and as European. And this is crucial, to rely, to trust each other.
Yeah.
And in our team, we trust each other, and this makes success, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, it's necessary. And I think, especially since as this group, we've never worked together before, and we had to do it in such a short time.
Yeah.
That's and I mean, yeah, well, and really we have 4 cultures working together. And so you really just have to sort of trust each other's expertise and what they're bringing in. So like, for me, it was really important that the core emotion and the core feeling of what we're representing needed to come from Victoria. But then in how can we keep that simple enough that it in the medium of show garden that people, because when you're at a show garden, you're seeing all sorts of things, and people need to be able to get that main idea in seconds. And so that was sort of my job, to make sure that the idea was clear enough that yes, there'll be layers and people can dive in, but they understand immediately in their gut what it's about.
Yeah, and this is really important to get this message done. Okay, before we are going into the plans, because I know that everybody is interested into plans, because all the show gardens, you can have whatever message you have, but the plans are the most important thing anyway. But before that, I want to highlight the course that you are bringing on the table, that about the donations to the charity. There is yellow and blue makes green. That's a really nice, meaningful title for this charity project. So I'll put the link in the description on it. So maybe you can have a few words about it, about this course and what's for it.
Yeah, Victoria, should I start?
Yes,
and then
we
you can
started
elaborate?
to.
Yeah. Oh no, go.
Yeah. We started to find charity to good course of our success in the garden. And we understood that the course of rebuilding the damaged gardens, not private, but for cities. Maybe sometime we will rebuild private gardens by charity. But this time is the time for help in our industry, to help cities obtain these possibilities to be green, to become livable again, and to people who will come back to the cities to have some place to recover.
So can I back up a little bit, because we had partnered with GLAU, which is a Guild of Landscape Architects in Ukraine. Yes. And that was really great. And because of that partnership, so all the parts of the puzzle inform each other. Yeah. And if we had partnered right away with a charity that was helping children, or if we were partnering from the beginning with a charity that was working on some other issue, we probably would have designed a different garden. But we really early in the process, this coupling had been made. And so this garden's really about landscape. and Glau, what they can do and what they can mean is they can mean something for landscapes, for parks, for natural areas. And so that really needed to be the cause and not something else, because the garden isn't about that. And so somewhere in that process, it was getting a little complicated to find another charity that would do that. So then we decided, okay, we're going to make a charity, which luckily in Holland is reasonably easy. Reasonably. So we also did that in these 6 weeks. So,
okay.
And so we've set this up now in Holland, but my hope is that we'll be able to administratively like hand it over to Glau or people in Ukraine to take it over once that can happen. And so it's just a way to give sort of focus. And then you've been talking to Glau, Victoria, and you guys have already found a few projects.
Yes, yes. We already talked today. I had a talk, and the Chernihiv is waiting for us. Chernihiv said that they have just bombed and erased 2 big areas in the city, with new buildings, with everything, with all communication. And they are happy to have us there to plan everything in a contemporary way, make it sustainable and all that, and bring their green, bring their a new understanding of landscape and of city landscape, of city greenery.
And something else we were really thinking about is when there's so much to rebuild, like the government's not going to be able to prioritize parks and green spaces.
Yes, I guess so.
And no one else is really going to if we as a landscape industry and the landscape don't.
But we can.
But we can.
Yes, we can make our little effort.
Exactly. And this is what we're hoping, like once we get some of the basics of the logistics of the garden settled, I'm going to start reaching out to different societies of landscape architects, groups in different countries, nurseries, gardening magazines, educational, gardening, and say, hey, support this so that we can structurally in the next few years as a world community of garden designers and landscape architects support Ukraine in rebuilding, because this is what we can do.
Yeah, and this is what we do understand, that it is important for the people. As you, Victoria, told that you want to live in a place which is life, you know.
Yeah, and we want to return. This is what we think about all the time. And Lithuania is one of the biggest friends of Ukraine now and helps Ukraine so much. Thank you for this. Thank you, guys.
Well, you know, we see that this is actually like our war as well. So this is, if we can do what we can do, so we do that.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think that's so important. We should all do it.
So that's why we put the link in the description box. So people, please check this out, and please join the this charity project that you have started with this beautiful garden. And let's go into plants, I guess.
Now we go to plants.
No, Victoria just went out. No, I'm not.
Like, I don't want to talk about plants. I've been with plants all day. Too many nurseries.
All right. So, of course, the plants are the material.
I'm sorry, my battery is out.
No, that's okay. So we are almost done. So I think the plants are the most live material that we are working with. And in this garden, I guess the plants that you have chosen should be also some representation of maybe something like traditional thing, and maybe something like from them, like this modern touch. What do you see the most as the most important plans that bring the message, or maybe it's
what is
much more simple there? So just say
what is important. What is modern now is a new wave everywhere. So we just make here a new wave, a Ukrainian new wave. We have a barley, and we have a field weeds, which are hopefully we will find here. So it would be something like wild carrots, something like poppies, something like corn flowers. So blues, some chamomiles, whites, umbrellas, reds, and from traditional is a hollyhocks next to the building. So people were living there, and they growing beautiful flowers. We also have small fence with pots, so the pots remaining of people life there.
Mm-hmm.
And trees,
ribes and rhubarb, right?
Yes, ribes is a black currant, red currant. It will be on next to house already with berries.
Berries, okay.
Yeah, and
nice.
Some, of course, we wanted to put somewhere Kalina, Ukrainian viburnum, which is famous for song now, and in embroidery also is very strong symbol. But here so we will have one, but it wouldn't be with berries, and it wouldn't be such a prominent part of a garden. Yeah,
but they look beautiful.
Yeah.
So maybe it's flowering now, no?
No, it's done flowering.
In Lithuania, it is flowering now. So.
Oh, really? Yeah, no, it's more April here.
Okay, yeah. We have a very late spring this year.
Yes. Here is much more summer now.
Mm-hmm.
It's
look at
roses flowering.
I can send you this viburnum.
Viburnum.
Okay, what are the trees that I saw in the picture there?
Carrie, tell about the trees.
So we wanted this idea of an abandoned orchard with trees that we've sort of pioneer species. So there will probably be, I'm looking at Victoria because she's been to the nurseries the last few days. We had picked out beautiful hawthorns and beautiful field maples and some malice and also ribes and viburnum. And so I think what I'm hearing is that we have quite a few Acer campestre that are beautiful, which is just, it's a tree that you're going to find in a young meadow. It's one of the earlier ones, like edge species, and it's supposed to look a bit like a thicket. Just that sort of edge. So not a tall, stately tree, but really a sort of multi-stemmed, almost bush-like trees. And are we doing hawthorn or the malice? What
Yes,
are you choosing?
yes. I will insist on this Malus domestica with the apples. Yeah, I found one today. Very
a nice one. Yeah.
Yeah, like for solitaire in a garden.
It's a very humble planting, to be honest. So you hear this, it's barley, it's these very common field weeds, it's these trees that you just know by the side of your road and by the meadow near your house.
And the hazel, so it's like something which is self-seeded from birds, from air, from everywhere. So it will look like that. When we went to the nursery in Belgium and choose some plants, they said, "Oh, please don't put our name on your marketing."
They were aghast.
We don't want to be advertised by these plants.
They kept showing us like these beautifully contorted like beeches and conifers, and we chose like the scrubbiest hazels and they were not impressed.
They said, "No, we don't want marketing from this. Thank you."
Oh, no. But it's interesting to hear from you the, so to speak, the backstage of the preparation to the garden shows like that, because to bring the pictures. So now, Victoria, you are at the site already building everything, and Carrie, you are still in Netherlands, right?
I'm still in Holland, partially because we need to be out of my house on the 24th of June, which had been decided before we started this project. And I think my partner would kill me if I left too soon. And And now we're working a little bit with logistics of some things. So we'll see. I will be there probably next week. But I have to finish a few things here first. But I think Victoria is doing great on site. And maybe it's good that I'm not there to take over.
Yeah, but we have great partner. Yeah, we have great contractor here. Actually, we are in his office in Essex. It's so beautiful place, and they have party actually there.
Oh, right now.
I have like this from the window. Yeah, and it is so nice team.
They are great
people. Yeah, they are great.
I think that's like the biggest tip if you're going to do a project like this: get a good contractor.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so you can say the name so we can put the in the caps.
Everyone.
Yeah.
I don't know. No, it's some guy. No,
He's Steve.
Yeah, no, but the landscape is Frog Heath's Landscapes, and they're really incredible. They've done a lot of show gardens, and knowing that they get it and they're very competent and they know the procedures has been immensely important to this.
Yeah, so thanks for them. It's really important to have a good partners.
No any problem on the site. So any problem could be solved, except the traffic on London M4.
You couldn't solve that?
Yeah. Huh?
I know I'm being typical New York sarcastic, saying that you couldn't solve the traffic. But
yeah, it's traffic. It's awful.
Okay, so ladies, I want to thank for your time. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm really glad that you came up with the idea that you have started to build this amazing project, and I wish you all the good luck. We'll keep fingers crossed so that everything went really good there. If anybody will come to Great Britain to have some tourist week or so, just jump to this Hampton and see
Super Bloom.
Yeah. And see how this garden will look like, and wave to Victoria and to Carrie and to anybody who will meet there, because it's really important to do that.
Lina, thank you very much. Thank you for doing this interview. It's also for us, it's a pleasure. Yes. And to speak with Lithuania, it's a pleasure to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so yeah, thank you for your time. So, and good luck, and we'll see you maybe live next time.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.